G'day, ZiggyD here with some Path of Exile news. Now, you'll have to excuse my voice as I'm starting to get a little bit sick and it's getting a little bit raspy. In today's news, we have Path of Exile's patch 0.11.1 has released, and I've taken a bit of time to explore some of the changes, and I wanted to give you guys a bit of an overview of the major changes, and let's jump straight into it. Now, of course, and let's not deny this to ourselves, the most important change by far in this patch is the update to helmet art. Let's zoom in there. The helmet I'm wearing, I look like a fly. That's pretty awesome. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a fashion montage of the different helmet art. Basically, let's go through here. Oh, can I equip this one? There we go. Oh, I have a system for this. There we go. How badass is that one? Even, as you can see, some of the uniques also have new art based on their base type. Go through these. Oh man, that's so good. These helmets are rad. Look, wolf one. Another cross one there. Birdcage, pretty sick. I want to get a bit of a better view of the birdcage one. That is awesome. Put this one on there. Back to the wolf. We've got the awesome face one there. And finally, there's heaps more than this, but I just wanted to show these to you guys. Where's my actual helmet? Put that back on. Where are you, helmet? There you are. Okay. So in general, Chris Wilson has said in the past that their idea for all of the item art for Path of Exile is to update it over time as they get the finances and the resources to do so. Now, their end game idea for this is to have it be that when you progress through the game, you're never wearing the same item twice. So there's no repeats. So if you guys take your minds back to Diablo 2 and remember that as you progress through the game, you know, you get your leather cap and then you upgrade to your little skull cap and you go through the game and you do that in normal mode. Then when you get to the next difficulty, you go back to the leather caps again. I always found that a little bit weird. Sometimes they change their color and things like that, but most of the time you're just repeating the same gear and the numbers go up. However, the developers have said that they really want to avoid this in Path of Exile in the future, and they want to give everything unique art, so you're constantly progressing and constantly getting more and more awesome. So this is the first really solid example of that. And as you can see, the helmets now, there's a ton of variety in them, and some of them look pretty badass. And it's a good indication of what's to come for the future as well, because this same sort of thing is going to happen for all of the other slots. So hopefully they do chest pieces next, because I'd really like to see some badass endgame chest pieces. And if you're worried about the lack of pants, as you can see with this armor set I'm wearing now, which does have pants, more armors in the future, more high level armors will have pants. Chris has said that he wants that to be a reward for people that make it to, you know, the really late game and get those really epic armors, and they earn those pants. You have to earn your pants in Path of Exile. Okay, so I have a list of the actual other changes, but let's not kid ourselves, that's a pretty major one. So the next one is that physical damage on items is now scaled by physical damage bonuses. Now that's a little bit confusing, but basically what this means is that things are calculated correctly now. Basically, before elemental damage, pretty much all forms of elemental damage would scale with any elemental damage passives you got. However, this wasn't the case for physical damage. But now, however, things like any and all physical damage bonuses on your gear will scale by things like this. So melee damage, increased melee physical damage. Now the biggest impact this has had is with facebreaker builds. I've seen people reporting with their different facebreaker builds increases of 50 to 100% damage. So people have doubled their DPS with their facebreaker build. So if you have an old facebreaker build, I highly recommend jumping it on and checking it out. Just be careful you don't die to reflect, because that's a distinct possibility. In fact, I think I saw a streamer earlier who jumped on his new facebreaker, new and improved facebreaker build with his uber high DPS, and died to reflect. So be careful of that. Consider yourselves warned. But that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool change, and we should see some even more exploding facebreaker builds. Hopefully, I haven't got back on my main character yet, but hopefully my Infernal Blow character also gets a little benefit out of that. Can't really think of whether there's too many stats that would scale well with that, but it's a good change. It's a good change overall. The next one is that shield charge can now be used with melee splash. So hopefully we're going to start seeing some shield charge nuking builds. I'm keen to see people charge into packs of mobs and just explode them all, because arguably that was one of the biggest issues with shield charge, the fact that it didn't have any AoE whatsoever. It was a great single target ability and a decent mobility ability, but it just had no AoE. So now you have an option to do that, and that's pretty cool. There was no real reason for it to not work with Mana Splash, so that's pretty cool. However, there has been another balance change that will affect shield charge, and that is that shield charge and all other forms of charges can now be evaded. Now, this might not sound like a huge change. Obviously, it will affect people. It will affect people using shield charge. They'll have to now get resolute technique or focus a bit on accuracy. But more importantly, this is a huge buff for evasion builds. Now, you guys have probably seen in the past that I've tried to build pure evasion builds, like my pure evasion archers and things like that in hardcore mode, which is still going. It's something I still work on slowly. It's a very slow progression build. But now, one of the biggest threats to evasion characters was charging enemies. So that includes the guys with shields in Act 3, any types of rowers, undead and normal rowers, including random rowers in maps which just one-shot you, and the ribbons in Act 3 as well. All of those now can be evaded because they basically had a 100% chance to hit you before, and when evasion was your only form of defense, which is pretty much necessary for any pure evasion build, then you'd pretty much die. You just have to avoid those areas in the past. However, now we can evade those. I'm pretty excited to get on my evasion characters and test that out, because that is a huge buff to evasion builds, and hopefully we'll be starting to see some more viable evasion builds. The next change was that diamond flasks have returned. Now, for those of you who didn't play in closed beta, diamond flasks were very, very popular and very, very overpowered. Basically, they had a short duration. It was something like 2 seconds or 1 second or something like that. And whenever you used them, you would have a 100% crit chance. So what people would do is they'd build builds with no crit chance bonuses whatsoever and stack as much crit multiplier as they can, and pretty much just run a full bar of diamond flasks and just permanent crit mode. Pretty much all endgame builds were basically focused around these, and it's been a big shift away from that actually. It's pretty funny to see how much things have changed. Well, diamond flasks have finally come back. I didn't think they ever would, because I didn't think there was a way of them possibly being able to balance them. However, something pretty cool. They've used the new lucky affix. So some of you guys may have seen on a recent couple of uniques, there's been unlucky and lucky affixes. And the way that these work is basically that with lucky, 2 rolls are made whenever you try to strike an enemy, basically, whenever you try to attack an enemy, and then the highest of the 2 rolls is taken. And that's how lucky works. So you get more benefit if your crit chance is really low, comparatively speaking, but you still can get a lot of benefit if your crit chance is high as well. It's a good, solid balancing one. Basically, you're going to crit a lot more when you use a lucky flask, basically a diamond flask, but it's not going to be a 100% crit rate, and hopefully it shouldn't be too OP. But yeah, I haven't got one of those. I'll try and get my hands on one and test that out with a build, though I don't think I have any crit builds, since crit builds are much rarer now since closed beta. And then the next thing which I wanted to show off, which is pretty cool, is this one here. Listen. Yeah, it doesn't work with scrolls, but yeah, new drop sound effect for currency. So if you're worried about, missing currency drops that are just off screen and things like that, hopefully this edition will change it. It does say there's also been a visual modification to the way currency drops, but I can't see this from this, so maybe it's something that changes only when currency drops for the first time around. But that sound effect is pretty cool. I'm really big on sound effects. One of the best things about Diablo 3, I think, is when legendaries drop and you get that legendary drop sound effect. Ooh, shivers. So good. So having unique sound effects for currency drops is pretty cool. Now when that Exalted Orbs drops, you're going to hear this, and you're going to know an Exalted Orb dropped. Pretty cool stuff. I'm pretty keen on that change. And then the final thing is that there was 5 new uniques put in. Now I only have 4 of those. I haven't seen the 5th one yet, but I'll bring these up on screen and you guys can see those. So the first one is our first ever unique flask. Now I don't know if I can. Oh, it's kind of a bit dodgy, but this guy gives you increased rarity, increased quantity, increased light radius, so you know when it's active, which I think is a pretty nice touch, and then 6% to all maximum elemental resistances, which is huge. That's massive. That's by far the biggest thing. Instantly when you look at this, your eyes are drawn to that increased rarity and quantity, and you're like, sick, this is a sick farming flask. But that 6% to all maximum resist is huge. I think the total you can get now is something like 99% increased maximum all resistances, so that's pretty badass. But yeah, this is balanced out by it being a fairly low level flask, so you're not really going to be able to use this to heal much. It's only a large hybrid flask, so 300 life, 140 mana, 5 seconds. Obviously, you're going to want to try and increase the duration of that as much as possible through quality bonuses, but You know, to be a decent farming flask. These are nice little bonuses that'll add on well to any sort of farming builds that can afford the flask slot to use these. But that all resist one is really special, and I think a lot of builds are going to start incorporating this hybrid flask. I think it's going to be pretty expensive. So let's close that one. Next up we have a sword with pink damage. Badass. So this is the first time I've ever seen chaos damage written out like that, but so colourful. Now this is obviously a really good cleaver sword, but something I do need to point out, you know, it's got 3 different elemental damages. It's got physical damage, increased attack speed, pretty good cleaving weapon. However, something I want to point out, chaos damage seems really good at first, but it's not multiplied by anything. The only things that multiply chaos damage are something like the red beak rusted sword and Le Hoop de All, I think, is the other one that multiplies all damage. So they're the only things that can increase chaos damage. So this 24 to 32 chaos damage is really nothing. It's super inconsequential at endgame because it is just that 24 to 32, unlike these, which will be multiplied out to, you know, be a couple hundred DPS each. So pretty decent sword, pretty interesting. I'm keen to see it. I really like just the theme of it. It's just this sick damage attack speed sword, but probably not that great in the end. Still a decent cleaving sword, it seems. Next one, which, sorry for the terrible quality, hopefully you guys can make that out. This one's actually pretty sick. This is a power ring, gives you extra mana, gives you increased mana regeneration rate, quite a bit as well. 3% increased experience gain, which is going to obviously make it a very good end game item for people really trying to maximize their experience gain. Increased intelligence for each unique item you have equipped. This probably includes this one. So basically when you equip this, you get 3% increased intelligence, and every other unique you equip, you're going to get more and more intelligence. Now this is really cool for CI builds that stack a lot of in. Basically, in is one of the biggest things you can do to increase your energy shield overall, and a lot of CI builds, or low life builds especially, use a lot of different unique items, so they're going to get a large intelligence boost from this, especially if they already have a high intelligence score to begin with. Pretty cool unique. And then the other fun one is 3% additional chance of slaying monsters to drop scrolls of wisdom. Now I believe this item was designed by the creator or the person who maintains the PoE wiki as well, so it is a Diamond supporter created unique, and it's pretty cool. 3% additional chance for slain monsters to drop scrolls of wisdom. That's pretty fun. And then the final one is the troll one, occultist vestment. This, I don't know why that's not zooming in. This guy is made just to troll people that are trying to chance their chevrons because it's on the same base item. But in its own right, I think it's pretty cool. Basically, a lot of fire damage stuff, increased fire damage, so you can 6-link it and increase your fire damage gems. Nice alternative to Searing Touch. Would work well in this build if my current my fire trap in Searing Bond build, if I wanted to drop the Searing Touch basically, or use it in conjunction with the Searing Touch, could work well with some fire-based builds, fireball builds, fire trap builds. Increased critical strike chance, so it'd be good for fireballs and crit strike focused fire trap builds. A decent amount of energy shield for a chest, and then 25% of fire damage converted to chaos damage. So that can be good for bypassing resistances. There's a few builds that can take advantage of that. And then there's this one that's pretty interesting. 100% increased spell damage when taken on low mana. So, yes, that's interesting. I think blood magic builds maybe would be able to avoid that completely. But yeah, 100% increased spell damage taken on low mana is a pretty big one. But by far the most interesting thing about this item, if we go back to its normal resolution, is it will make you look like Sailor Moon. Yeah, that's pretty schmexy there. Anyway, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this update. That's the main stuff. There's a few other things to note in the patch, but only minor stuff. I'll link the patch notes in the description below for you guys to check it out, but that's the main stuff. Pretty exciting stuff. PoE just keeps getting better and better. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.